Here I am, treasured ones, and welcome to this day's Table, Camel, or Foot Read and Review, Part 8 of 10, pages 28 through 34 of 40, during this fourth watch of the 28th day of the 12th month, on or about so-called Monday, March 30th, 2026, per the Roman Commerce calendar. It is approximately 6:40 a.m. Roman clock local time in the alleged Central Time Zone. Location: the supper room, in or around the unincorporated village of Belmont, Nebraska, without the USA Inc. Quick housekeeping note: fair use statement. Excerpts of copyrighted material may, under certain circumstances, be quoted verbatim for research, news reporting, and commentary purposes without the need for, permission from, or payment to the copyright holder. Again, this is Table, Camel, or Foot Reading Review, Part 8 of 10, pages 28 through 30 of 40. Analysis of recommendations is pages 28 and 29 of 40. Tribal enrollment considerations, page 30 of 40. Areas needing further research, pages 31 through 33 of 40. And oral history collection, page 34 of 40. Most High willing, of course. Page 28 of 40 reads as follows. Table, camel, or foot, a family tree of a victorious peoples, sprung forth by way of blankets, beans, and bullets delivery services. All Almighty law rights reserved by the finger of the Almighty One, with the blood of the Anointed One, from the breath of the allocated one. Analysis and recommendations. Summary of Indigenous heritage findings. This genealogical investigation has revealed substantial evidence of indigenous ancestries through multiple ancestral lines, primarily concentrated in Virginia, South Carolina, and Georgia. The research identifies documented connections to several indigenous communities with varying levels of certainty. Documented indigenous connections. Monacan Indian Nation, Virginia, strong evidence. The most thoroughly documented indigenous connections appears through the Mitchell and Scott lines in Amherst County, Virginia. Alexander Mitchell, born 1856, Peddler District, Amherst County, and Ida Scott, born about 1863, Peddler, Amherst, represent your strongest documented tribal connection. The Peddler area is the ancestral and current homeland of the Monacan Indian Nation, a federally and state-recognized tribe of the Zionian-speaking peoples. Historical context supporting this connection. Both Mitchell and Scott surnames appear in historical records documenting families identified as, quote, free people of color, unquote, in the Peddler District. These families are specifically associated with the Monacan Indian Nation in genealogical and historical sources. The Scott surname is documented among the Saponi and Monacan, and please excuse my pronunciation, ancestry families. The geographic concentration in the Peddler District is significant as the areas remain central to the Monacan community today. Yamassee heritage, South Carolina, Georgia, moderate evidence. Evidence suggests possible Yamassee ancestry through the South Carolina and Georgia lines. Thomas, also known as Thomas Williams, born about 1850, Orangeburg County, South Carolina, shows potential Yamassee ties based on geographic proximity to the historical Yamassee territory, the Desto region near Orangeburg. The Williams surname presence in the Gullah-Geechee communities. Historical documentation linking Gullah-Geechee descendants to Yamassee heritage. Turn with me to page 29. Page 29 of 40 reads as follows. Tempe Thompson Hill, born 1841, Georgia, represents an additional Georgia connections where the Hill surname appears among Gullah-Geechee Yamassee descendants. Note, the Yamassee connections are more challenging to document definitively due to the historical diaspora following the Yamassee War, 1715 to 1717, and the complex identity shifts that occurred as communities migrated and blended. South Carolina German-Indigenous intermixture. The Schuler-Dantzler families in Orangeburg County represent an interesting pattern of German immigrant families who intermarried with local populations. Joseph Joe Schuler, born about 1838, and Clarice Dantzler, born about 1842, both carry German surnames with document presence in, quote, free-colored, unquote, communities. Freedman Bureau records confirm indigenous heritage for Joseph Schuler. Historical records show these surnames appearing, quote, across racial lines, unquote, in South Carolina. The designation, quote, free-colored, unquote, in early census records often included indigenous peoples alongside other non-white populations. Additional ancestral patterns. Virginia, free people of color. William Carter, born about 1845, Virginia, represents families documented among Virginia's free people of color and United States colored troop veterans. The Carter surname appears prominently in the records of free black and indigenous families in Virginia. Uncertain indigenous connections. Several ancestral lines show characteristics consistent with indigenous heritage but lack definitive documentation. Horty Carter, born 1888, Amherst County, Virginia, same region as Monacan territory. Willis McLemore and Nicey, minimal records found, but North Carolina location relevant. Richard Nicholas and Elizabeth Carey Nicholas, Buckingham County, Virginia, limited documentation. Turn with me to page 30. Page 30 of 40 reads as follows. Tribal enrollment considerations. Option A, Yamassee. Your Yamassee connections through the Williams, Hill, and Flower lines in South Carolina and Georgia may provide eligibility for enrollment with Yamassee tribal organizations. Yamassee Nation. The Yamassee Nation is a tribal organization that accepts members with documented Yamassee ancestry. Your connection through Thomas, Williams, Orangeburg County, South Carolina. Tempe, Thompson Hill, Georgia. Sarah, also known as Sally, Flowers, Georgia. More information, YamasseeNation.org index. Option B, the Original Aboriginal American Republic, UAAR, Nationization. The United Aboriginal American Republic, UAAR, offers an additional avenue for recognizing your indigenous heritage through nationalization. About UAAR. The UAAR is a sovereign nation of indigenous Aboriginal Americans, the Yamassee, that operates as a constitutional republic focused on reclaiming Aboriginal heritage, land, and governance. The organization is rooted in natural law and Aboriginal wisdom with a ministerial congress and a dual society structure. Your eligibility. Based on your documented indigenous ancestry through multiple lines, Monacan, Yamassee, and potentially other indigenous connections, you should qualify for nationalization with the UAAR. This recognition acknowledges the complex history of Aboriginal Americans who are often misclassified in historical records as, quote, free color, unquote, or, quote, mulatto, unquote, or other designations that obscured indigenous identity. More information, www.uaar.nation.org. Again, that's www.uaarnation.org. Historical context and social positioning. Your ancestors navigated complex racial categorizations in the American South. The patterns of families identified as, quote, free colored, unquote, geographic clustering is known. Indigenous communities and specific surnames associations all support indigenous heritage. However, racial classification systems in the 18th and 20th centuries often obscured indigenous identity, particularly in the South, where, quote, free colored, unquote, became a catch-all category. Now, I forgot to point out the websites. This is the one for the Yamassee Nation, option A, and this one here is for the option B, UAAR. Turn with me to page 31. Page 31 of 40 reads as follows. Areas needing further research. Priority research areas. Number 1, Mitchell-Scott line documentation, high priority. Objective, strengthen Monacan Indian Nation connection. Specific research needs. Obtain certified copies of all vital records for Alexander Mitchell and Ida Scott. Research Amherst County land records, particularly in the Peddler District, 1850 to 1920. Investigate tax records and property transfers. Search for church records. St. Paul's Episcopal, I believe that's how it's pronounced, mission, established 1908, served Monacan community. Look for school records. Monacan Indian School operated 1868 to 1963. Identify collateral family lines and living descendants who may be enrolled tribal members. Repositories of contact. The Monacan Indian Nation Museum and Tribal Offices. Amherst County Courthouse. Land, probate, tax records. Library of Virginia. Family History Centers with Virginia records. Turn with me to page 32. Page 32 of 40 reads as follows. Areas needing further research continued. Number 2, earlier generations research, high priority. And by earlier generations, 1870 and before. Objective, extended documented lineage further back. Gaps to address. Richard Nicholas and Elizabeth Carey Nicholas. Parents unknown, pre-1870 records needed. Polly Peters, mother of Alexander Mitchell, no documentation found. David Mitchell, father of Alexander Mitchell, no limited documentation. William Scott, father of Ida Scott, limited documentation. Mary Jane Sparrow, mother of Ida Scott, limited documentation. Research strategies. pre-1870 census records through indigenous free-colored families, often undernumerated. Buckingham County, Virginia records for Nicholas line. Amherst County records for Mitchell Scott lines. Cohabitation registers, Virginia, 1866. Freedmen Bureau records. County court order books. Turn with me to page 33. Page 33 of 40 reads as follows. Areas needing further research concluded. Number 3, William Fearnought line, moderate priority. Objective, clarify Yamassee connections. Specific research needs. Adam Williams and Phyllis Williams, parents of Thomas Williams, no documentation found. Abel Fearnought and Maria J. Davis, parents of Maria Fearnought, limited records. Orangeburg County, South Carolina deed records and probate records often reveal family relationships. South Carolina free person of color records. Church records from Edisto region. Land records showing proximity to known indigenous communities. Number 4, Georgia lines investigation, moderate priority. Objective, document Hill and Flowers connections. Specific research needs. Tempe Thompson Hill, parents unknown. Georgia county of origin unspecified. Sarah, Sally, Flowers, parents unknown. Georgia county of origin unspecified. County level research wants geographic origin narrowed. Property records for free people of color in Georgia. Church and cemetery records. Number 5, Macklemore-Nicey line. Low, moderate priority. Objective, basic documentation. Current status, minimal records found for Willis Macklemore and Nicey. Research needs, North Carolina county records. Specific location unknown. Migration patterns to West Virginia. Possible Lumbee connections given North Carolina origin. Turn with me to page 34. Page 34 of 40 reads as follows. Oral history collection. Recommendation. If any living relatives from older generations are available, conduct recorded interviews focusing on family stories about indigenous heritage, community connections and where families live, traditional practices, cultural elements, or language retention, family migrations and reasons for moves, relationships with other families in the community, community research, Monacan community connections. Reach out to Monacan tribal historians and genealogists. Attend Monacan Homecoming annual event if possible. Connect with Monacan genealogy groups or Facebook communities. Research whether Mitchell or Scott family members still live in or near Amherst County. Conclusion. Your genealogy research reveals compelling evidence of indigenous heritage, with the Monacan Indian Nation connection representing the strongest documented tribal affiliation. The convergence of geographic, surname, and historical evidence in the Mitchell-Scott lines provides a solid foundation for further research and potential tribal enrollment exploration. Additional research focusing on pre-1870 records, land documentation, and community connections will strengthen your documented lineage and provide deeper understanding of your family's indigenous heritage and cultural history. The Ninth Hour Private Member Assembly Proclamations. All Almighty allowed rights reserved through the scriptures. And that concludes Table, Camel, or Foot Reading Review, Part 8 of 10, pages 28 through 34 of 40. Pages 28 and 29 of 40, Analysis and Recommendations. Page 30 of 40, Tribal Enrollment Considerations. Page 31 through 33 of 40, Areas Needing Further Research. And page 34 of 40, Oral History Collection, Community Research, and Conclusions. The next video, most high willing, will be focusing on the epilogue, which is pages 37, 30, or excuse me, pages 35, 36, and 37 of 40. Assuredly, this all makes sense via social media posts. See you at the next video. Most high willing, treasured ones.